We are going to have an amazing conversation right now. We have a high-level economic researcher from Zillow, and as most people know, Zillow is quickly becoming the encyclopedia of real estate. The data that's available, the information about, not just a specific house, but a market in general, or the whole national viewpoint of what's going on in real estate. So we're really excited to have Svenja Gudell from Zillow. Svenja is the director of economic research. Svenja, welcome to the Gerard Realty Show.
Thank you so much for having me, Damon.
You bet. It's my pleasure. First of all, let's just start with give us like 1 minute. What do you do at Zillow? Zillow is a rapidly growing and huge company, and I've met a bunch of people from Zillow at the Zillow conference a couple months ago. What is your role, and where do you come in at the Zillow program?
So I actually head up the economic research team here at Zillow, and we have a group of roughly 10 folks, and all of us are researchers, either data scientists or economists, and we get to play with the numbers all day.
Wow, that sounds thrilling.
It's a pretty cool job. We get to answer some really cool questions.
Yeah. Well, but as a part of that, you guys are looking at the numbers, and Gerard Realty Group, we think that real estate is a numbers business, right? You buy a house for a certain number, and it's worth a certain number. So when we're talking with people and our clients and customers on the buy or sell side of a real estate transaction, what are the statistics that our clients should be looking at or thinking about when it comes to the buy-sell transaction?
I think a lot of numbers will come into play when you're either a buyer or seller. In general, when you're looking at the St. Louis market, I think right now what describes you best is slow and steady. St. Louis was hard hit during the housing bust, and you've been a slower market to recover. Your story is very different than the story of, say, a San Francisco, a Seattle, or even a Washington, D.C. You're really a middle-of-the-country kind of market that has been very slow to recover. So for buyers and sellers, something to keep in mind is there's still lots of negative equity out there, which means homeowners actually owe more on their mortgage than what their house is worth. And that's had a lot of quirky effects on the market. One of the biggest ones is that inventory right now is very low in really much across the country, but also in St. Louis. So if you're a seller out there, this will work in your favor. There's so few options that if you can put your house on the market right now, you will probably get a fair amount of interest simply because there aren't a whole lot of choices.
Right.
For buyers, this means it might be tough. You find yourself in a little bit of a competition because there are so few homes. However, it's a good thing for the market overall because that has been causing home values to climb steadily, and that's also the outlook going forward. We do think we'll see another 3 to 4% home value appreciation over the next year.
Is that right?
That's a really good thing.
And you're saying 3 to 4% in St. Louis, in the St. Louis market. That's interesting because I think if you and I talk to especially new clients about this a lot. If you look at a 100-year curve, and you guys probably do a much better job than I do, but if you look at a 100-year curve of real estate in St. Louis, it's about a 3.5 to 4% march over time on an annual basis.
That's right. Yep, and that's really what the nation is doing overall. Roughly, 3.5% every year in home value appreciation. Our forecast for the nation is actually only 2% for the next year.
Is that right?
Nationally, will slow down more. So you're in a pretty good seat right now in St. Louis.
So you're telling us in the St. Louis market, even though the national market's going to grow at, and we're talking about average home value. That's the statistic we're talking about, right? Is average home value.
The median home value.
The median. Right. Okay, so median, and we can talk another day about the difference between median and average because nobody ever gets that.
That's the kind of answer you get when you're talking to an econ geek like myself.
Exactly, but we appreciate it. We really like the insight. So that's the real statistic is the median home value, and you're saying that the national number looking forward next couple of years is about 2%, and you think St. Louis is double that at 4%.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
I think part of that is driven by the fact that St. Louis is a little bit behind the curve in terms of what it still has to make up.
I see.
Overall, you're still down 17% from your previous peak of in terms of home values that happened in May of 2007. So you still have a lot of headroom to actually make up, and part of that is driving that home value forecast.
So you're seeing overall the St. Louis market from a economic research perspective, you think we're still 17% below the peak of '07?
We are, yes.
Yeah, that surprises me because when I do our, you know, we generally operate in the central corridor of St. Louis County and all of St. Charles County, and you know, I'm not a researcher. I don't necessarily have hard data to back up every bit of it. But I generally think that in our part of the market, we're really back to about where we were in '07.
You know, it really depends on where, you know, and as you know, of course, real estate is such a local business, and it really depends on where specifically you are. Some markets are almost back to what they used to be at.
Right.
You know, if you're looking at a place like Alton, then you're almost back to peak, whereas some other places out there are so far from peak that
right.
you know it's going to take a while.
Gotcha. So St. Louis is obviously we're right in the middle. Do we compare in the same way to most Midwestern cities and major markets, or I'm sure we're much different than what you see out there in Seattle and what they're seeing on the East Coast? I mean, how do we compare to major markets like the top 25 or so?
You know, I think in general, St. Louis is very different, especially if you're looking at the coastal markets, as you just pointed out. You know, if you're looking at a San Francisco, a Seattle, in New York, St. Louis didn't have the extreme run-up in home values and also didn't have the extreme collapse,
right.
which was a good thing. So you had a much smoother home housing recession than
exactly.
a lot of other places. You know, if you were in Phoenix, you were on a roller coaster ride.
Right. Yeah, that's
so.
This.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt you. Go ahead. Just finish that thought.
Sure. Yeah, I was thinking if you're in Phoenix, you're really on a roller coaster ride, and I think consumers really there are getting somewhat of a whiplash effect in terms
right.
of what home values are doing to them.
That's...
So in St. Louis, that was actually a good thing. You appreciate it, then you fell, and you're currently recovering. But it was still a recession, and you're still feeling the pain of that recession in St. Louis. The bad thing now is that the recovery is going a little bit slower. So
right.
we really have to look at things that will help that recovery along. One of the things we're looking for is job creation and having enough employment to go around. Because,
right.
of course, if you have a steady job, you're much more likely to invest in a home.
Well,
so, you know, a good thing is not too long ago, St. Louis was named one of the fastest-growing technology hubs.
Right. Yeah,
right?
We've got a lot of venture capital actually coming in. So we are about to run out of time. I hope, first of all, that you will promise to come back so we can do a little more in-depth. I mean, it's just great to have you. Most of what you've been saying kind of supports what we talk with our clients about as far as
right.
just the nature and the general movement of St. Louis. But it's good to hear it from more of a scientific person because we're just realtors out there just helping people with the American dream. So we are almost out of time. I think that we might have 1 minute left. And I just want to chat for a minute about the Zestimate. And the reason is because we get questions about that about 100 times a day. And everybody, you know, and we think it's a great tool, but what we see mostly is people don't know how to use it. So just real quick, tell us what the Zestimate is and just a quick recommendation on how a consumer might be able to use it.
Oh, sure. You know, in a nutshell, the Zestimate is a starting point. It's really meant to give you a quick look at how much a home might be worth, especially great in a market where there's not a whole lot of homes on the marketplace. You don't have a lot of listing prices to go by. And you can really get a sense for how much are homes in an area going for, how much do we think they are worth. And if you're looking at your own home, that might be super useful, too, to just get a sense of how much is my house worth right now? How much, do we think it's worth?
But from a statistical viewpoint, I mean, it's not a personal, it's not a, you guys aren't flying over with a drone looking at somebody's house and seeing how much wallpaper they have, but you're just taking a statistical, kind of a high-level view of a house in a neighborhood similar to houses in that sort of neighborhood.
That's right. It's the Zestimate is generated by a computer using a fairly complex algorithm. We've never seen the house, and it's a point estimate, and that will come with an error band around it too. So sometimes folks get confused and say, why is my house not worth exactly what the Zestimate is?
Right.
Well, we've never seen your house, and it's an estimate, so we could be off.
So if
you will want to contact a local agent to really have you walk through your house and give you a much better sense for what is the house actually worth.
That's what I was just about to get to. If you are looking at your estimate, and whether you like it or don't like it, call the Gerard Realty Group. Call us at 314-896-0474, and we will give you an in-depth and personal viewpoint of what your house might be worth in today's market. The estimate's a great starting point. Svenja, thank you so much for coming on the Gerard Realty Show today. We hope that you will come back, and I really just appreciate your participation.